Richard John, you've been hosting one of the seminar sessions at this year's EIBTM. It was on TED, not the movie, but the global events phenomenon. And you were telling people how this industry can learn from that particular event. So talk us through what you were telling people.
Absolutely. Well, I called my presentation Lessons from TED, and I was delighted to have quite an eclectic mix in the audience, from event students right the way up to meetings planners and association organisers and executives, who are all very much aware of the TED phenomena and wanted to see how the lessons can be applied. One of the obvious things is that TED don't pay their speakers. What they do is they challenge them. They say, come along and give the speech of your life in no more than 18 minutes. And to me, I think that's really radical, because we're so used to going to events where it's kind of expected that someone, be the chairman or the keynote, is going to have to talk for 45 minutes. The reality is people often don't want that anymore.
And of course, beyond that, there's also the incredible way they manage to promote the events in incredibly clever ways as well, isn't there?
Well, one of the points I made is that TED, to some extent, has stopped being a conference organiser and is now a multimedia producer. So if you check out their website, you'll notice that they're also into things like publishing. You can buy the books, you can buy, effectively, you can hire an iPad with a number of presentations on. So they're moving very much into the field of education as well. So they are rebranding, repackaging, constantly looking at new ways of developing the brand.
And I suppose what they're basically doing is looking at all the resources they've got and maximising them, because for the last couple of years now I've been thinking that we started off with a situation whereby a lot of publishers would create events, but now you have a lot of event organisers with really big global audiences that should now actually be becoming publishers just in the way that TED do.
Absolutely. If you go to the TED website, you can choose pretty much how you want to consume all those thousands of really fantastic presentations. So you can draw up your own playlists, you can decide whether you want to be motivated, entertained, however you want to use it. And of course, TED will provide all the content on a creative copyright license, so you can use it at will, as long as you don't then re-edit it. So it is a fantastic resource that's made available to everyone. I think it's received more than 1 billion views for a lot of their videos. So it is becoming hugely popular. But one of the things I would point out is I find their business model quite remarkable. And I said in my presentation that when it comes to the pricing, when we look at streamed content, it's still very much an experiment. So you can pay $4,000 to go along to the TED event. You can pay $1,000 to have it streamed live into your home and have a party. And 2 weeks later, it's there free of charge on the website. I have to be honest and say I still can't get my head around it, but clearly it works, and they are packed out with people willing to pay that kind of money to receive the content there and then.
I guess what it's about really doing is looking at your audiences and thinking about the various channels that they have access to, and once again thinking outside the box, and as you said, looking at the world and at your sector in a much more multimedia kind of way.
I think so, but I think also it's the way they've almost changed the balance. So in the past, an organiser of a conference would perhaps put out a call for papers. The topics would be selected by a panel who might decide which is the content that's most worthy, not necessarily the most compelling and most exciting. Whereas TED's approach is, well, actually, we're going to make people work very hard to get a place on the TED platform. And to some extent, the audience know that if there's someone in front of you who may not necessarily float your boat, well, what the hell does it matter? Because 10 minutes later, there's going to be another one. The truth is now, TED's brand is so powerful that one of the things that happens is people work incredibly hard to make their TED presentations absolutely perfect. I quoted the fact that Chris Anderson, the curator of TED, recently wrote a piece in the Harvard Business Review, and he made it clear that if you're chosen to speak at TED, you should start preparing your presentation, remember your 10-minute presentation, at least 9 months ahead. Now, as someone who will put up his hand and say, I've written presentations in a taxi on the way to walk on the stage, that's quite an achievement, but people who speak at TED will make that commitment.
And what do you think has given them that gravitas, that ability to pretty much call the shots and also at the same time inspire people to perform to the max? Big question, I know, but you're on the Genius event stand, so let's have the answer, Richard.
Well, I think there are probably many, many answers. One of the things is that TED is now 30 years old, so they've worked very, very hard at protecting their brand. And even when they've had people who say, I want to do a TEDx event, they're very willing to support it, but they're still ultra protective about their brand. You do it their way. So if you were going to organise a TEDx event and you had the best speaker in the world turn up and say, I'll speak at your event, I want half an hour, they're still prepared to say, no, at 18 minutes we will pull a handle and you will disappear through the stage. So it's partly about being very, very open and true to your values, but I think it's also about understanding that people want to go to events to be stimulated, motivated, entertained, and not just to have this knowledge pumped into them. Every person who walks onto this TED stage is guaranteed to give you those things. And once you've made that kind of guarantee, your audience will turn up, as they've shown at the TED conferences. The secret is put all the effort into delivering what the audience wants, and the speakers will then come to you and say, we think we can help you.
Now, I know why you're on the Genius event stand at this year's the IBTM. Richard, John, thanks for talking to me.
As always, a pleasure.